Chapter 5. Jon. There were times, not many but a few, when Jon Snow was glad he was a bastard, as he filled his wine cup once more than a passing flagon struck him that this might be one of them. He settled back in his place on the bench among the younger squires and drank. The sweet, fruity taste of summer wine filled his mouth and brought a smile to his lips.
¿Cómo andan?
The great hall of Winterfell was hazy with
Ya mero
smoke and heavy
terminan.
with the smell of roasted meat and fresh-baked bread. Its gray stone walls were draped with banners, white, gold, crimson. The
Oye,
dial-up star, Baratheon's crown staff, the lion of Lannister. A singer was
Iba a decir,
playing
¿encontraron el
high
papel?
harp and reciting a ballad, but down at this end of the hall his voice could scarcely be heard above the roar of the fire, the clangle of pewter plates and cups,
¿Quién
and the
sabe?
low mutter of 100 drunken conversations. It was the 4th hour of the welcoming feast laid for the king. Jon's brothers and sisters had been seated with the royal children beneath the raised platform where Lord and Lady Stark hosted the king and queen. In honor of the occasion, his lord father would doubtless permit each child a
¿Quién
glass
sabe?
of wine, but no more than that. Down here on the beaches, there was no one to stop Jon from drinking as much as he had a thirst for. And he was finding that he had a man's thirst for the ruckus delight
Pero
of
sí
being
recogieron todos los
surrounded by
papeles y los
children
guardaron.
and drink a glass. They were fine company, and Jon
¿Quién
relished
sabe?
the stories they were telling, tales of battles and
Oye,
betting
Lulu?
on the hunt. He was certain that his companions were more entertaining than the king's offspring.
Ándale, pues.
He had saved his
Porque,
curiosity about the visitors when they made their entrance. The procession
Oye, yo no traigo ni un
passed on foot
5.
from the place he had been given on the bench.
ahora me
Jon
quedé
had
corta.
gotten a long good look at them all. His lord father came
Sí.
first, escorting the
Dile
queen.
que a la próxima
She
me
was
voy con
beautiful,
ellas.
as men said. The jeweled tiara gleamed amidst her golden long hair.
Sí, no
Its
traigo yo
emeralds
dinero.
perfect match for the green of her eyes. His father held
Ándale,
her
pues.
stairs
Ok.
steps to the
Bye.
dais and led her to her
Ok,
seat.
bye.
But the queen never so much as looked at him. Even at 14, Jon could see through her smile. Next had come King Robert himself with Lady Stark in his arm. The king was a great disappointment to Jon. His father had talked of them often. The peerless Robert Baratheon, deemed of the Trident, the fiercest warrior of the realm, a giant among princes. Jon saw only a fat man, red laced under his beard, swaying through his silks. He walked off like a man half in his cups. After them came the children, little Rickon first, managing the long walk with all the dignity a 3-year-old could muster. Jon had to urge him on when he stopped to visit. Close behind came Robb, in gray wool trimmed with white, the Stark colors. He had the Princess Myrcella on his arm. She was a wisp of a girl, not quite 8, her hair a cascade of golden curls under a jeweled neck. Jon noticed the shy look she gave Robb as they passed between the tables and the timid way she smiled at him. He decided she was insipid. Robb didn't even have the sense to realize how stupid she was. He was grinning like a fool. His half-sisters escorted the royal princess. Arya was paired with plump young Tom, and his white blonde hair was longer than hers. Sansa, 2 years older, drew the crown prince, Joffrey Baratheon. He was 12, younger than Jon or Robb, but taller than either, to Jon's vast dismay. Prince Joffrey had his sister's hair and his mother's deep green eyes. A thick tangle of blonde curls dripped down past his golden choker and high velvet collar. Sansa looked radiant as she walked beside him, but Jon did not like Joffrey's pouty lips or the boring, disdainful way he looked at Winterfell's great hall. He was more interested in the pair that came behind him, the Queen's brothers, the Lannisters of Casterly Rock, the Lion and the Imp. There was no mistaking which was which. Sir Jaime Lannister was twin to Queen Cersei, tall and golden with flashing green eyes and a smile that cuts like a knife. He wore crimson silk, high-blood boots, a black satin cloak. On the breast of his tunic, the lion of his house was embroidered with gold thread, roaring its defiance. He called him the Lion of Lannister to his face and whispered Kingslayer behind his back. Jon found it hard to look away from him. This is what a king should look like, he thought to himself as the man passed. Then he saw the other one, flopping along, half hidden by his brother's side, Tyrion Lannister, the youngest of the Lord Tywin's blood and by far the ugliest. All that the gods had given to Cersei and Jaime they had denied Tyrion. He was a dwarf, half his brother's height, struggling to keep his slender legs. His head was too large for his body, with a big squashing face beneath a swollen, shoveled brow. One green eye and one black eye peered out from under a length of fall of hair, so blonde it seemed white. Jon watched him with fascination. The last of the High Lords to enter where his Uncle Benjamin started the nights watching his father's war game with Neon Greyjoy. Benjamin gave John a warm smile as he went by. Dan ignored him utterly, but there was nothing new in that. After all had been seated, toasts were made, thanks were given and returned, and then the feasting began. John had started drinking then, and he had not stopped. Something rubbed against his leg beneath the table. John saw red eyes staring up at him. "Hungry again?" he asked. There was still half a honeyed chicken in the center of the table. John had tried to tear off a leg. Dan had a better idea. He knifed the bird whole with the carcass slide to the floor between his legs. Ghost heard briefly in savage silence. His brothers and sisters had not been permitted to bring their wolves to the banquet. But there were more curs than John could count at this end of the hall, and no one had said a word about his pup. He told himself he was fortunate in that, too. His eyes stung. John rubbed at them savagely, cursing the smoke. He swallowed another gulp of wine and watched his direwolf devour the chicken. The dogs moved between the tables, trailing after the serving girls. One of them, a black Mongol bitch with long yellow eyes, caught the scent of the chicken. She stopped and edged into the bench to get a share. John watched her invitation. The bitch growled low in her throat and moved closer. Ghost looked up silent and fixed the dog with those hot red eyes. The bitch snapped an angry challenge. She was 3 times the size of the direwolf pup. Ghost didn't move. He stood over his prize and opened his mouth, baring his fangs. The bitch tense barked again. They thought better of his fight. She turned and slunk away with one last defiant snap to save her prey. Ghost went back to his meal. John Green reached under the table to ruffle his shaggy white fur. Direwolf looked up at him, nipped gently in his hand, and then went back to eating. "Is this one of the direwolves I've heard so much of?" A familiar voice asked close at hand. John looked up happily as his uncle bent a hand on his head and ruffled his hair as much as John had ruffled the wolves. "Yes," he said. "His name is Ghost." One of the squires related the body story he'd been telling to make room at the table for their lord's brother. Benjamin started straddled the bench with long legs and took a wine cup out of John's hand. "Summer wine," he said after a taste. "Oh, it's so sweet. How many cups have you had, John?" Ben Stark laughed, as I feared. "Oh, well, I believe I was young and the first time I got truly and sincerely drunk. A snack of roasted onion dripping brown with gravy from a nearby trencher and bit into it. It crunched." His uncle was sharp-featured and gaunt as a mountain crag. There was always a hint of laughter in his blue-gray eyes. He dressed in black, as befitted a man of the night watch. Tonight it was rich black velvet with high-leather boots and a wide belt with a silver buckle. A heavy silver chain was looped around his neck. Benjamin watched Ghost with amusement as he ate his onion. "A very quiet wolf," he observed. "It's not like the others, John said. He never makes a sound. That's why I named him Ghost. That and because he's white. The others are all dark gray or black. There are still direwolves beyond the wall. We hear them on our range." Benjamin started to give John a long look. "Don't you usually eat at table with your brothers?" "Most times," John answered in a flat voice. "But tonight, Lady Stark thought it might give insult to the royal family to see the bastard man." "I see." His uncle glanced over his shoulder at the raised table at the far end of the hall. "Brother does not seem very festive tonight." John had noticed that too. A bastard had to learn to notice things, to read the truth that he hid from their eyes. His father was observing with courtesy before his Titus and but John had seldom seen before. He sat a little looking out over the hall with hooded eyes, seeing nothing. 2 seats away, the king had been drinking heavily on the right. His broad face was flushed by his great black beard. He made many a toast loudly at every jest and attacked each dish like startled him. Beside him, he was nice and absurd. "What is he going to do, George?" He said in a quiet voice. "Father took him down to the crypts this afternoon. Please didn't want him to go." Then she gave John a careful entry. "That's much to you, John. There's a man like you in the wall." John swelled with pride. "Rob is known stronger lance than I, but I'm the better sword. No one says I sit a horse's wing as anyone in the castle. Notable achievements. How you been looking when you go back to the house on the sun this summer? Father will give me leave to go if you ask me. I don't." Uncle Benjamin studied his face carefully. "The wall is a hard place for a boy, John. I'm almost a grown man," John said. "I will turn 15 on my next name day. Master Lawrence says bastards grow up faster than other children." "That's true enough," Benjamin said with a downward twist of his mouth. He took out his cup from the table, filled it fresh from a nearby pitcher, and drank down a long swallow. "Daemon Targaryen was only 14 when he conquered Dorne," John said. "The young dragon was one of his heroes. The conquest that lasted a summer, his uncle pointed out. 14 lost, 10,000 men taking the place, and another 50 trying to hold it. Someone should have told him more in his game. It took another sip of wine. Also, so like his mouth, Daemon Targaryen was only 18 when he died. Have you forgotten that part?" "I forget nothing," John boasted. The one was making
No,
him
pues, si
bold.
sales a
He
las
tried to sit
5 a las
very
5:30.
straight to make himself seem taller. I want to serve in the Night's Watch, Uncle. He had thought on it long and hard, laying in bed at night while his brother slept around him. Rob would Sunday inherit Winterfell, would command green armies as the Warden of the North. Brandon Rickon would be Rob's bannerman and rule Holdfast in his name. His sisters Arya and sons would marry the heirs of the other great houses and go south as mistresses of castles of their own. But what place could a bastard hope to earn? You don't know what you're asking, George. The Night's Watch is a sworn brotherhood. We have no families. None of us will ever have father's sons. A wife is duty and mistress's honor. Bastard can have honor too, John said. I am ready to swear your oath. You are a boy of 14, Benjamin said. Not a man, not yet. Until you have a woman, you do not understand what you can give up. I don't care about that, John said hotly. You might if you knew what it meant, Benjamin said. If you knew what the oath would cost you, you might be less eager to pay the price, son. John felt anger rising. I'm not your son! Benjamin stood up. Where's the pity? He put a hand on John's shoulder. Come back to me after you father a few bastards around, and then we'll see how you feel. John trembled. I will never father a bastard, he said carefully. Never! He spat it out like venom. Some of the meals at the table had fallen silent, and they were all over him. He felt tears begin to well behind his eyes. He pushed himself to his feet. I must be excused, he said with the last of his dignity. He rolled a bolt before they could see him cry. He must have drunk more wine than he had realized. His feet got tangled under him as he tried to leave, and he lurched sideways into a servant hole. He sent a flagon of spiced wine crashing to the floor. Laughter boomed all around him, and John felt hot tears on his cheeks. Someone tried to steady him. He wrenched free of their grip and ran half the length of the door. Ghost followed close at his heels out into the night. The yard was quiet and empty. A lone sentry stood high on the battlements of the inner walls, cloaked tight around him against the cold. He looked bored and miserable as he huddled there alone, but John would have traded places with him in an instant. Otherwise, the house was dark and deserted. John had seen an abandoned Holdfast once, a dreary place where nothing moved but the wind and the stones keep silent about whatever people lived there. Winterfell reminded him of that tonight. The sounds of music and songs spilled through the open windows behind him. They were the last things John wanted to hear. He wiped away his tears on the sleeve of his shirt, furious that he had let them fall, and turned to go. Boy, a voice called out to him. John turned. Tyrion Lannister was sitting on the ledge above the door to the Great Hall, looking for all the world like a gargoyle. The dwarf grinned down at him. Is that animal a wolf? A dire wolf. John said his name is Ghost. He stared up at the little man. His disappointment suddenly forgotten. What are you doing up here? Why don't you at the base? Too hot, too noisy, and I drunk too much wine, the dwarf told him. And long ago that he is considered wounded vomit on your brother. Why do you have close rooms at your wolf? John hesitated, but not slowly. Come on down, or shall I bring a ladder? Don't believe that, the little knight said. He pushed himself off the ledge into empty air. John gasped and watched Ravah's tyrant with a tight ball, when it lightly on his hands, then bolted backward onto his legs. Ghost backed away from him uncertainly. The dwarf dusted himself off and I believe I frightened you, wolf. My apologies. He's not scared, John said. He knelt and called out, Ghost, come here. Come in, that's it. The wolf pup padded closer and nuzzled at John's face, but he kept a wary eye on Tyrion Lannister. And when the dwarf reached out to pet him, he drew back and bared his wings in a silent sorrow. Shy, isn't he? Lannister observed. Sit those junk again. That's it. Keep still. He looked up at the dwarf. You can touch him now. He won't move until I tell him to. I've been training him. I see, Lannister said. He dropped the Snow White fur between Ghost's ears and said, This wolf. If I wasn't there, he'd tear at your throat, John said. It wasn't actually true yet, but it would be. In that case, you would best stay close, the dwarf said. He cocked his arms side to one side and looked John over with his mismatched eyes. I'm Tyrion Lannister. I know, John said he rose. Then he was taller than the dwarf. It made him feel strange. You're Ned Stark's bastard, aren't you? John felt the coolness pass right through him. He pressed his lips together and said nothing. Did I offend you? Lannister said, Sorry, dwarfs don't have to be tactful. Generations of capering fools and motley have won me the right to dress badly and say any damn thing that comes into my head. You are a bastard.
Are you down
What
with
did
your
Stark is my
cigar?
father, Johnson admitted stiffly. Lannister studied his face. Yes, he said, I could see it. You have more of the North in you than your brothers. Brothers, John corrected. He was pleased by the dwarf's comment, but he tried not to let it show. Let me give you some counsel, bastard. Lannister said, Never forget what you are, for the world. For surely the world will not. Make it your strength, then it can never be your weakness. Armor yourself in it, and it will never be used to hurt you. John was in no mood for anyone's counsel. What do you know about being a bastard? All dwarfs are bastards in my father's eyes. You are your mother's true-born son of Lannister. Am I? Dwarf replied sardonic. I'm telling my father. My mother died very young when he was a child. I don't even know who my mother was, John said. Some woman, no doubt. Most of them are. My favorite John with the roof of the room. Remember this boy. All dwarfs may be bastards, yet not all bastards need be dwarfs. And with that, he turned and sauntered back into the feast, whistling a tune. When he opened the door, light from within threw his shadow clear across the yard. And just for a moment, Tyrion Lannister stood tall as a king.